I think I'll start with you, Yaroslav. Clearly, you don't necessarily work. Actually, no, maybe perhaps Anna may be best place to ask this one. I suppose we should start. What is the Russian National Biometric Database? Perhaps everybody here in the room knows, but maybe those watching online do not.
Russian Biometric Database is the government-owned system which allows to store data from the persons in the one government-owned system with the access for banks mainly and for various use cases, which we will talk later, I guess.
And the data there would be voice, face, retina. What would they be storing?
They would be storing everything you want to store. It could be face, voice, and or other biometric like fingerprints information.
Just checking that we've got. Is he coming on? Sorry, please welcome Alexander Khanin to the stage. And
yeah,
can we have on this side? Yeah. Oh. I was going to sit in that one, and then you guys can sit here. Sorry. So if you sit here, sorry. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay.
No, I'll sit in that one if you just take. No, if you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Now, VisionLabs obviously develops. I should introduce myself. Lovely to meet you. Develops a lot of this technology. How does what you do and the technology in Russia, how does that differ from things happening in, say, France or in China?
So, in general, it's the same technology. People around the globe have the same type of the faces, just two eyes, nose, and mouth. Yeah, and but the difference in the application. So, technology is the same, application level is different. So personally, I am focused on building business applications of facial recognition technology, and I'm proud of my team because we created several good use cases. For example, for access control, face-to-pay, remote bank access. So we are working on the things which improves the quality of life and accessibility for some services for the people, not about building Big Brother.
Clearly, there are something that you are really an expert in is way neural networks have developed to allow some of these advances and allowed advances in recognition, but the way that we can process images a lot more effectively now. What do you think are the advances in recent years that have allowed this step change?
Even for face recognition?
For face recognition more broadly, but also the way that just generally we can process images more effectively, which is your area of expertise.
Yeah, definitely for faces, the same factors as for, in general, for neural nets, right? So computer power, a lot of advances in architecture, a lot of new papers. So this in general, it's the same factors. So, and I would say maybe I'm not the best person to speak particularly about face recognition because that's something we don't do at FaceApp, right?
Yeah.
We do something, we work a lot of faces, we do a lot of faces, but we don't do face recognition. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer this question.
I mean, at the center of this, there is a tension, clearly. There's the question of convenience on the one hand and of privacy on the other. And I suppose, Anna, I will come to you on a separate question, I think, but what do you think are the three biggest concerns?
I think face recognition is quite a mature technology already. We are using it in our day-to-day life for years already. And the question of the technology is mainly the quality of analysis, how you analyze the video stream. And that is what really creates a lot of questions, because if you are using it in your private device, it's okay, everyone's using that. Or if you want to use it, for example, if you want to make payment for coffee through your face or access this exhibition or whatever. But when it comes to global surveillance, using face recognition, then it raises a lot of questions. First of which is, of course, privacy. And for example, in California, I should mention it, I think there is a prohibition until the end of 2022 to use face recognition in the video surveillance for the civil purposes. And that is a protection for the citizens, which is also very important, that gives them privacy and keeps them safe from the mistakes which the technology always has. And we will see in 2 years whether it will develop to that stage when there will be no mistakes or 99 assurance of the correct recognition. But currently it is not the case, and that's why privacy issues and interpretation matters. And to that extent, I think that is one of our values, one of the European basic values which has been created after World War II, and that is definitely an achievement of the civilization. So we shouldn't stop valuing privacy, being fond of technology. As I am absolutely a fan of technologies, and for me personally, use of biometry is always fun. But I choose to come to your show and...
It's generous of you to describe it like that.
Yeah, and probably there is my name here, so I don't see an issue in that. But there are people who do see, and the main thing which we should focus on is the availability of choice. And the person itself should decide whether he wants to use it or he don't want. And it should never be obligatory in any case. And that's, I think, the main idea from the humanitarian perspective, if you like, that you have to choose your way of living and interaction with the world. And that's the main thing, rather than the technology.
I mean, Intel clearly has a lot of very advanced technology across, smart city infrastructure and facial recognition, and well, not actually facial recognition, but stuff on the back end. You guys are in a situation where you might be offering things, but also have pressures to ensure that you are, in line with popular concerns. How do you manage those two, that push and pull, in terms of what you might be willing to provide, what safety nets you're building into the features that you might offer to perhaps someone like VisionLabs?
Yeah, first of all, we're definitely strong believers that technology brings a lot of advantage across the industries, government, and society at large. And as a technology company, of course, we are doing our best to create, great technology. And at the same time, we are taking privacy and security issues very seriously. And that's why, of course, creating our products, we always, imply these security features on the hardware level, on the software level. And, it's, if we are talking about working with big amounts of data, definitely it's really important that data is being encrypted, from being hacked. And of course, we have various encryption technologies. This is one thing. Another thing that it's important that information and massive data can be analyzed at the edge, so that it can be deleted, when it is not needed.
So we should explain what is meant by the edge, right? So the edge is, well, you should explain, it's your technology.
Yeah, so the data is being analyzed on the smart devices that is collecting the data, and it is not being sent to the cloud.
Right.
So, and this is also kind of, better security. And of course, there's always a question like, yes, the technology can be used in the wrong way, where is my data, who is using it. And of course, we address these issues. We are very open to work in collaboration with governments, with policymakers, with industrial associations, with the society at large, on the principles. And we also created a special AI white paper on how the technology,
I mean, Microsoft, for instance, and I'm sorry if that sounds like a swear word to you guys, but Microsoft has guidelines about how you can use their facial recognition technology, and if a police service says, well, I'm going to use it to predict crime, I think, then they will say, no, you can't. Do you have similar guidelines on a basis on which, and could you give me an example of what they are?
Well, we released a kind of draft legislation. Again,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Apologies. Can you turn the volume up?
We released a draft legislation regarding AI, artificial intelligence usage, and definitely face recognition is one of the workloads of AI. And yes, there we are providing like our principles from privacy and security perspective, how the technology should be used. And definitely the main idea that the technology can, and innovative use of data can definitely coexist with privacy and security. And, you know, we, again, as I said, depending on the country, of course, we are ready to work with various policymakers and the society to make sure that we are addressing the issue of privacy.
I mean, clearly privacy is a big issue. You say, you know, a lot of it is about convenience. How do you ensure that data isn't used by, you know, law enforcement agencies when that's not the intention of people giving up that data?
So, you know, so many talks about privacy and facial recognition, especially. So, facial recognition is under attack now. You know about news from California, etc. I can say that we have a lot of deployments exactly in California, and how to be sure that customer data is protected. You just have to be compliant to regulation. In each country, you will find this regulation. For example, in the European Union, it's a GDPR, and if you are compliant, this is a guarantee that data is protected, encrypted, and fully depersonalized. So you have to you have to check local regulation, and then go through the to-do list, checklist, and if you feel if all things is okay, so you are protected. You are protected from fines, because if in case of
I suppose the question, the regulation question is one thing, but if the regulation, do you think the regulation, say in Russia, does enough to protect the interests of the individual?
In Russia, regulation is quite tough. Yeah. So.
Do you agree?
I think the legislation in Russia is still based on the European values, and we still have in our constitution the privacy protection. So it is basically true, but I love very much when technical guys speak like lawyers. If we are compliant, that everything is fine, our lawyers told us that we are compliant and it's okay. But in essence of that, you have to have your own attitude to what you are doing and how you either promote your technologies or protect your technologies. And that is, I think, more interesting aspect than just saying I'm compliant with everything. Probably you're not.
I'm giving you right to reply.
Yeah, so in any case, you have to be compliant. This is the law.
Or you're not going to engage with her.
Yeah, and about promotion, we are promoting that facial recognition is not about the government use. So facial recognition has so many uses in business. And if you check independent market reports from Markets and Markets, Bloomberg, so you will find out that annual growth rate of business application is about 27%. Government applications about 10-12%. So this is from independent reports.
I suppose the way you know, when you think about platforms like Facebook, particularly Facebook, and for the first 8 years of its existence, you had people going, brilliant, I can talk to my friends and post all my photos and see my cousin's baby. And then particularly in America, they discover that actually you're the product, right? And there's been a huge, you know, well, certainly something of a reduction in engagement on Facebook, the core Facebook platform in the US. And that seems to me there is a sense within the, you know, consumers, among consumers, that this payoff you're making of serving yourself up for ads isn't worth the use you're getting. And as far as I understand it, in Russia, the national biometric database so far has, only 40 or 50,000 people have signed up. So I don't know who would like to say this. How do you convince people that it's worth their while? Because it seems to me that there is something of a nervousness about signing up for it. But I've not let you chip in yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main problem is that people just don't understand how face recognition works.
Right.
And if you look at the latest trends in privacy, it's not about regulations, right? It's about making people understand what you do with data. If you look at all this GDPR, of course, it's a mess. But the main idea, don't hide behind your huge privacy policy. Don't hide behind the terms of use. Explain what you do with data and why you need the data. And even the simplest things like website cookies, they're not stealing perfectly. But if we are going to face recognition, it's much more complex. So now nobody knows, OK, if they use face recognition, what information do they store about me? Who knows the answer? I mean, really, who knows the answer? I mean, only you know the answer, obviously, right? Basically, there is some kind of 100 numbers that compress all information about picture in just some very, very compressed form. Your nose shape, your mouth shape, and everything. But who knows that, right? And you store this kind of, it takes less than 1 kilobyte to store. And people feel safe. OK, they say, your picture is not stored. And even more, I mean, you cannot restore the picture from these numbers. But actually, maybe this is the most dangerous thing to know about you. And it's something completely new. And people don't have an idea what it is. I think before we have regulation, we have somehow to have the strategy. How do we attack this issue?
I mean, clearly, the FaceApp had its own problems earlier this year, where I'm sure, well, I don't know if people are aware, but there was a bit of a backlash in the US that they looked into some of your terms and conditions and suddenly were very scared, perhaps for reasons that were unfounded. But what surprised you the most about the backlash that you faced? What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, I think for us, there was the problem, but I would say it's mostly like it was a PR problem. There was no actual privacy problem. And all allegations were debunked by security researchers, so I think we are quite OK at this front. But what surprised us that really people became really conscious. They really started to think about it. I think Facebook, you're right, I think this is because of the Facebook. So maybe we should thank Facebook for that. Because now people started to trying to ask the same question about other companies as well. And let's say 5 years before, it was you could just write privacy policy, nobody read it, right? There are many jokes, there are many popular culture, many fragments when you kind of nobody reads privacy policy. And it's still true, but for popular application, journalists read the privacy policy. And then if there is something peculiar and they don't know, why you need it, they will bring attention. And now people care, because journalists would never bring the attention if people don't care.
So, I mean, the thing that I'd say from that, it seems as though you're saying that actually, and if I'm miscomprehending, then please correct me, that you took a set of terms and conditions and thought, this is what everybody uses, it's fine. And actually, in hindsight, you kind of say, well, we should have thought about this, actually. How does this look? It looks as though we're doing this one thing, and in fact, we're not. Which, am I right in saying that?
Yeah, approximately.
And up to a point, that sort of contradicts what you said, in terms of, you said, as long as we stick to the law, and the law is fine, we can do it. But this is more a sense of actually we need to think ourselves. What is acceptable? What are our users going to think that we're doing? And we have to think carefully about these processes.
Actually, even the law actually, if you take like the current US law, privacy law, it's basically say, declare what you do and you're good. I don't speak about Illinois, I don't speak about upcoming California legislation. I speak about US in general. In Europe, it's different. I mean, they say collect all the data you need, explain why you need it. So, and it's more like it's a little bit less kind of. It doesn't give you this loophole, right? So you need really to think, why do we need it? Do we need to collect it? How do we explain to users?
Do you think, I mean, does that change your view at all? Do you think you need to think more deeply about what you are not doing and not just stick to the letter of the law?
So, as I told, to be compliant is must-have feature. And so you mentioned that, for example, in Russian national biometric system, there are not more than 50,000. So this is because of user experience. It's really difficult to give samples of your face and voice. So that's why it's not millions, not tens of millions, it's just thousands. And while we are doing some business applications, we are starting from people needs. We are thinking how to improve the life and how to make this AI and facial recognition as a part of everyday life or as a part of a business process. So, of course, all applications should be business-driven. And since you can make people happier or safer, then secondary things to make it compliant, to explain and to declare what's under the hood, etc. Yeah. So I fully agree with Yaroslav. Yeah.
We've had a brief. Oh, sorry. Please. Did you want to chip in on something?
I just wanted to add something to what the guys were talking about. Is if you look at how technology is developing, since telegraph, we never had privacy of communication. In the telephony, we never had privacy of communication technically. It was always a set of rules how you can access this data. And why we're still using this? Because it's very convenient. And the same in time will happen with the face recognition, because it is convenient. And people like when it's convenient. And when you can pay with your face without carrying anything, and you don't need to worry about stolen cards or whatever, it is convenient. But we just don't need to push hard from the government side or from the vendor side that we need to install it right away. But there are things which we used to in our culture, and so we just need some time. As human beings.
Is that in some ways a risk, though? Because if you think about it with the iPhone, now I don't have an iPhone 10, but if the iPhone that has Face ID, all that processing is, to your point, done at the edge. It's done in the handsets, on a secure enclave, and no one else is seeing that data. But increasingly, as it moves into Android phones, some of those phones perhaps, the more the processing is handed off to the cloud, it may not be as secure. And in some ways, this has created a risk, because it's made people used to Face ID, knowing that this is secure, but further applications might not be as secure. And particularly when it comes to, cybercrime and those risks. I mean, your Intel is servers, the main, lion's share of your profit at least. How do you ensure that those things are secure, that they're not open to exploitation by bad actors?
Again, so we are working on the technology to imply the security features there, as I mentioned, like encryption or, really good security features on hardware level, software, various kits we have. But it's really important to work with the ecosystem, with the integrators who are implementing those solutions, right? Depending again on the need. For instance, in 2020 we will have Olympic Games in Tokyo, and we are working with NEC company. So we are going to provide hundreds of terminals with face recognition for more than 300,000 attendees who are accredited for Olympic Games. And again, this is a great usage model, because on the one hand, people will wear their IDs, but with face recognition systems, it would be 2 times faster. It would be more secure, and definitely if you forgot your badge, you had a party like celebrating your athlete, winning, and you forgot that you
But will that be optional?
Huh?
Will it be optional? Will they have the choice? They can say, actually, I don't want to give my face data, and I'm going to tag in myself?
Actually, in this particular case, I can't tell you. I know that, again, our partner, they are very much aligned with the regulators, and they are fully compliant with the privacy and security, standards required. That's why, again, if anything needed to be signed or whatever. So anyway, all attendees knows about the fact that there will be a face recognition system at, at the venue. And also, speaking of sports events, at the World Cup, also we introduced this face recognition system, again, because FIFA, they have these security standards, and again, organizers have to comply with the standards. So the Russian partner helped us to implement, again, using our toolkits, using our products, this technology of entrance to the stadium being identified, monitoring the stadium, making sure that any banned kind of activities is not being done. So.
I think it's interesting that, though, on the one hand, you've talked about the 300,000 people coming into the stadium, or working in the various Olympic facilities and athletes and so on, and then you have identifying people within the stadium. And I think it leads to an interesting question about silos. Do you need to have, a national biometric system where Yandex and Sberbank and any other company can grab data from it, for argument's sake? I don't know if that would be the case. Or actually, do we need to be a bit more careful about saying, yes, you can take facial data, but company 1 should have it, company 2 should have it, much like on my bank cards, I have 5 different SIM codes, right? What do you think of that, Anna?
Of course, silos are very important. And I think that speaking about any IT project, you always have a choice to do it as a cloud solution or an on-premise solution. All big players always choose to have on-premise solution because they care about the security and have enough money to do the infrastructure, the basic layers. And smaller businesses, they don't have that luxury to create on-premise solutions of everything what they are using. So you always need to have choices, and I think that's more an issue of standardization first, then of course information security, which you need to establish, and the government system are usually quite secure because a lot of money and attention is paid to it. Private databases may be less secure depending on how a particular company cares about that. But giving your face to your employer, for example, to enter the factory, it's much easier than to give your face to a government system to be able to be used in the banks. And that is, I agree with the colleagues saying that that's first an issue of digital education of people. And we have different views in the society who really likes that and who will never allow this system to work for him. So that is another issue, that society should be divided. It shouldn't be one rule for everyone. It will never really live like that. But we need to clearly explain to people what it means. And sometimes legislation is not the best solution. Introducing of legislation doesn't really solve any problems because society have to accept it. Because, for example, I'm head of Big Data Association in Russia, and we decided to start with the code of ethics rather than piece of legislation which will allow or disallow something to happen. And that is true, I think, to all new technologies. Everything which we invent really need time to be a playground for us. So I don't think the legislator should have a strong position promoting something. Maybe protecting people in California is a good way, and that's actually a new way of ruling the technology, just to stop it for a while and see. And another side of this is to issue white papers, code of ethics, these soft types of mechanisms to create really belief that this technology will help.
The sort of push and pull between business and government is interesting. On the one hand, you have opportunities. On the other hand, yeah, we've got to protect the rights of citizens. But and it's who you're protecting them from. Is it from companies? Is it from governments? I mean, what are the biggest pros on your side? Like, what are the applications where you think we absolutely need this as private individuals?
So there are several examples. So you mentioned iPhone. So since you start using Face ID, it's super inconvenient if you come back to Touch ID. So you can try and feel the difference. Another application, for example, border control. So people have an option. To wait in the line. Or
but I suppose that's a different question, because that's again a question of convenience. You know, I can get into a country without facial recognition. I can unlock my phone without face recognition. Are there any applications where you think we need them? Absolutely.
I'm absolutely sure that we need facial recognition for bank services, for financial services, to prove our money, because there are a lot of cybersecurity risks. It's not a secret. And the best option is facial recognition to protect your money against unauthorized access. So many examples when people losing the money from their banking account because someone cheated with passport, with fake ID, and just steal the money. So you have an option to lock your money with your face, because to fake ID, it's about $20 US to fake ID. To fake your face, at least 50,000.
So, and then again, that's the level in which it comes back to silos, right? That I can see how that's an absolutely useful application. I would perhaps disagree that it's essential.
But if he will be a police officer, he will tell you the answer, right? I think for us consumers, it's mostly convenience. I don't see anywhere we really need it. Everything works. But if you ask some enforcement officer, government say, okay, we really need to find everyone in this crowd. They will say you many use cases. But if you speak about marketing people, we need to, in our store, we really need to identify all the people and market better. But I think for us consumers now, it's mostly convenience.
Right.
And that's actually the reason for this serious discussion, because the people who really need it, maybe, I mean, they are not on the same side as we are, as consumers.
And so who would those people be?
Government, for example, police forces, right? Obviously, they need it, right? It will be much easier if you know every person, on the street where he was, where he will go.
Yeah.
And the machine learning can predict everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
Yeah, just from the security purpose, definitely for police, it's a great tool. And the recent example is India, which uses a lot face recognition system, and more than 10,000 children which were kidnapped were found using the mobile devices with face recognition apps by policemen. So, and they claim it as a great, great success,
But I think Russia famously has a 99.75% conviction rate in the law courts. Do you think that number goes up or down with facial recognition?
This issue has no relation to facial recognition.
No, I mean, do you think it helps, ensure that only the right people are found, or do you think it could, rope more people into that sort of system?
I think first it's a shame for Russia that we have such a conviction rate, and that really has nothing to do with face recognition, because the problem is within the system, legal system. It has nothing to do with the technology, and combining those things really doesn't help. It kind of put a technology on the dark side, which is not good.
I think our time is up. I'm hugely grateful for all of you for your time. Please put your hands together, everyone, for my panel.